Thanks for tuning in to Talking Point. I'm your host, Neeraj Shah. And today, we're talking to somebody who will give us a great view on the whole auto ecosystem as it is getting developed in India, or developed is the wrong word because it's been there around for a while, but how is it moving ahead per se? So that's part one. And he's, of course, the chairman of a very, very successful auto OEM himself. Sunjay Kapur, president of ACMA and chairman of Sona Comstar, joins us right now on the show. Sanjay, great having you. Thanks for taking the time out.
Thanks, Neeraj. Thanks for having me.
No, the pleasure is entirely ours. So I would love to understand from you, because about how do you think about the Indian auto component or the auto OEM space in light of the fact that it's had a long-standing history, but the times they are changing very, very quickly these days.
Yeah. So great. What's happening is there's a great amount of disruption in the automotive industry. When you talk about developed, I would say there's so much disruption and so much disruption happening, not just in the industry, but in the ecosystem, that there are several opportunities for the auto component industry. I think with every challenge, it brings about an opportunity. With the transformation from our traditional ICE engine to EV, and when I talk about EV, I also refer to alternate fuels. All these solutions are going to be disruptors, and all these solutions are also going to be opportunities for the component industry. If you look at what's happening in the component industry, we've had great growth. Last year, we closed at $56.5 billion. This current financial year we just passed, we closed at close to $67 billion. And 30% has been the export. So great opportunity from an export perspective, which really gives us to believe that even though there is a decline in the overall car sales globally, India is growing. And that gives me to believe that, the China One Plus strategy is playing out well. People are making the right investments in technology and therefore are able to capture the opportunity of exporting. The government has also been consistently pushing the auto component industry and the automotive industry, OEMs included, to invest in future technologies, not just from an export perspective, but also from a deep localization perspective. And therefore, we will see imports come down. There's a great stress in terms of localization across products. I think the big challenge, of course, still remains electronics, where we will see challenges unless we localize, and then there is a big localization drive to do that. So the auto component industry, in my view, is doing well. We're geared up for growth. We're geared up for the EV revolution that we're in the midst of. Whilst the sales in EV are still very minuscule and mostly skewed towards 2 and 3 wheelers, passenger cars will increase. Buses will increase. Public transport will, and then we'll see alternate fuels play some role as we as we evolve.
By the way, just a quick follow-up on one interesting point that you made, which is this whole attempt to develop the chip ecosystem in India. We're seeing the starting forms of that. How long do you think before we can say that there is a high degree of reliance on domestic procurement and domestic production of that very critical equipment for all forms of auto?
Yeah. So there's no short answer to this. However, what's happened in the automotive industry, and I talk about, when I say automotive industry, I mean the OEM and the component industry together. Globally, at the start of the pandemic, we were 7% of the buying of semiconductor chips. Today, I would say we're possibly 15% and going to 20%, because the number of chips in vehicles as well as components is increasing because of the connectivity, the telematics, cybersecurity, everything that's happening in vehicles from a safety perspective as well. Even if you look at, globally, all the safety standards are requiring certain metrics to be met, and therefore the number of chips is increasing. But the number of chips is also increasing in other industries, not just in our industry, and therefore we are going to see cycles when it comes to this. Currently, we're in a positive cycle. Currently, we don't have a very major issue. As long as OEMs over a period of time develop the ability to manage software better, we'll be in a better position when it comes to semiconductor chips, because we'll be able to alter the output And therefore, I think this is an evolution process. When we went to the pandemic, to be very honest with you, I don't think anyone in procurement and OEM even knew that they bought chips. Today people will tell you when they will run out, what they will cost. Everybody in the supply chain will tell you that, because chips has become so important. But again, this is an evolution. We have seen things become better from the chip supply situation. However, again, like I said, this will be a cycle, because electronics will increase the number of chips, and so will automotive. So I'm hoping that we can build fab facilities in India. There's a lot happening in North America. There's a lot happening in Europe, as well as the East, the Far East. And I hope in India we're able to build semiconductor chip facilities, because it is required. It's a great opportunity. There's a long lead time. There's a large investment. And these require some serious players to come in and build those facilities.
Oh, okay, cross fingers for that. The other aspect, Sanjay, is this whole electrification piece. Now, a lot of conversation around that. One interesting one that I had recently with one of the incumbent two-wheeler companies, wherein the person was of the opinion that it would be a first mover disadvantage for companies who made a headlong foray into EV production in the last 12 to 24 months in a big way. And the nature of the game, the way it is being produced, the technology and the cost will all change materially over the course of the next 12 to 24 months. I would love to understand from you, from your landscape or from your prism, how do you view this whole EV shift that is happening, and what could it mean for auto OEMs in the country?
Yeah, so the EV shift is inevitable. It has to happen. Because that's the way the world is going, in terms of regulation, in terms of customer demand, in terms of clean. And of course, we need to look at clean energy. There's no doubt, because the next question will be, how do we look at clean energy when we're producing energy through coal, etc. And these questions are being asked continuously, and they are being addressed, because we need to move to that sort of an environment where we're going carbon neutral. I think carbon neutral by 2070 is what India's goal is. I'm pretty certain that companies internally have goals of 2040, because we need to go carbon neutral, and as quickly as we can. It's better for the environment. It's what the consumers demand as well. And I feel that yes, costs will come down, as in everything. When economies of scale increase, costs do come down, and I feel technologies will evolve as well. We're really at the starting point in a sense that we're already in the revolution of EV, but we're also at the starting point where standards are being set, where charging infrastructure is being put up, where different kinds of fuels are being tested. So these will evolve over time, and in a short period of time. I would say, I'd go as far as saying that this will happen in a short period of time. But standards will get set, costs will come down, and therefore it'll become more affordable. Any way to run an EV is supposed to be more affordable. If you now look at rural India, where electricity, when you get it, is free, charging is free, so your vehicle is pretty much free to run from a running cost perspective. So it's all pointing in that direction, in my view, not just in India, but globally.
Got it. Lot of moving parts, but one would argue there always are. I'm just trying to understand what worries you from amongst all of this. I mean, there is this whole raw material price vagaries, availability of chips, as you just mentioned. For now, we might be in a good cycle, but who knows how long that lasts. So to your mind, for the next 2-3 years, what is the largest risk looming on the horizon from an Indian auto industry perspective?
I feel the largest risk will be if we don't invest in R&D. Companies need to up their spend. Private sector's role is to invest in research and development, and research and engineering, research and materials, in everything that we do. Currently, the spend of R&D is not even 1% of revenue. Globally, it's about 6% is the average. In India, we need to increase the spend in R&D. And that's really where the challenge comes, in my view, in my mind. If we want to continue to grow, and we want to continue to grow globally, and when you look at the EV space and you install capacity for EV, you've got to install it for large numbers, and the large numbers are coming globally. They're not happening in India currently, and they will happen. And then, to my mind, there's no doubt that we will move to an EV platform. We will move to EV, even in passenger car, even though the numbers may be small today. However, to get there, we need to continuously invest in R&D. And that is really what I would stress, and I continue to stress even in ACMA. We have continuously given the opportunity to companies, expose them to customers through technology days, expose them to countries to build partnerships. I was in Israel, just this past week, looking at innovative technologies. There's phenomenal stuff happening in mobility. Our industry is really moving from automotive to mobility, because anything that's mobile is going to require us, whether they be bots or they be autonomous vehicles, etc. So, we're in the mobility space, and therefore we're going to have to invest not just from the tier 1 perspective, but even tier 2 and tier 3 down the line. If you look at what happened in the tier 1 space in the late 80s when Maruti Suzuki came in, we all got into joint venture partnerships for technology. Some of us went out and bought our joint ventures out and owned the technology. Some may have sold to the joint venture because they owned the technology, and some still exist in the joint venture, in the joint venture formation. But now the tier 2 and tier 3s need to look at technical agreements or technical licenses or joint venture opportunities so they can invest in technology. And I can't stress enough how important technology is.
You've done a fair bit of it at Sona, which is the company which is yourself, one on the R&D, and I presume that's where your CEO stresses about that a lot in his conversations with me, or in terms of tie-ups as well, right? So actually, it's a question that I always would have wanted to ask you, and I'm doing that right now. The Sona, the company Sona BLW current of today looks materially different from what it used to a few years back, right? So how did how did you think about changing the pieces of the company the way you did to make it as contemporary and as future proof or future ready as it might be right now?
Yeah, so I think, we started off with a great foundation. The fact that we made bevel gears at the volume that we did, and the fact that we owned the technology, make our own dies, make our own fixtures, gave us a great foundation to build upon. We've just forward integrated. We've been at the right time at the right place with a lot of hard work as well, but we've been at the right time at the right place when it comes to, accessing the right technologies. Like I said, we spend about 3.5% to 6% of revenue on technology on any given year. So it really varies in terms of what the customer requires and what's the requirement at that stage. We have been continuously developing technology. We continuously look at new technologies. So, we've gone from ICE to, focusing on EVs because we believed in 2016 that we would, be hit by the EV revolution. While others may have, fought that thought, we were very clear that we will see the EV revolution. And therefore, we forward integrated into the products that we built, from components to systems. Even if you look at the motor business, which we bought from Blackstone, it was a starter motor business. We worked very aggressively to convert that to a traction motor business, which supplies into the today into the 2 and 3-wheeler EV space. We're also working with companies from a product joint venture perspective, not a company joint venture, but a product joint venture, to look at larger motors, some magnetless motors, as well as motors for large vehicles, be they buses or cars. Again, in the electrification space, we've now branched out and looking at autonomous, because we believe we need to look at what comes next. We're not going to deny the fact that we are going to move to ADAS. We may not move to level 5 here in India or level 4, but 1, 2, and 3 will happen. And therefore, we're now moving towards that aspect of what's happening or that disruptor that's happening in the automotive industry. So we've had a very clear path in terms of wanting to be. Our purpose is really wanting to build a technology business based out of India with Indian technology, and therefore we put all our efforts into building local technology that can be supplied to the world.
Just thinking out in such a fast changing technology area, how easy or difficult is it for you to take a decision about investing heavily in a particular kind of technology without knowing the certainty of how long will it last? Because we've seen, EV battery technology change multiple times in the last 24 months itself. So how are you going about this transition?
Yeah, so we take very safe bets. We do a lot of research. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in terms of the technologies that we're going to get into. We have a technology roadmap. that continuously, sort of captures what we need to do and then continuously brings that into a already made product. So what happens is that if you look at what we've done with Novelic, with the sensor technology, it's a millimeter wave radar technology. We've been very, very careful in terms of what technology of sensors we'll get into. We studied the millimeter wave radar space, thoroughly before we actually invested in it. So we make very safe bets. We're not in batteries. I don't see us getting into the battery space, etc. Because again, that's a space that we don't understand. We'll go into things that we understand and things that are related to the products that we already make. We don't want to make a million different products. We want to be really good at what we do.
Yeah, no, I was just using that as an example. But okay, my final question, Sunjay, and that is about growth. Now, you've grown at a very good pace in the last few quarters / the last few years. Your order book suggests that growth will not be a problem. However, I'm just trying to understand from you as a promoter, as the owner of the company, what would make you feel that, let's say 5 years out in FY28, that you've grown well?
So, it really helps we started off as a very small company. And therefore, we've seen the kind of growth we have because we've continuously captured, business share or market share from new customers. We've grown within customers. And we hope that we continue growing in this manner in the disruption and in the disruptive industry that we see, be it in electric, be it in autonomous. And I hope we can continue growing in mobility as a whole. Because I don't want to limit ourselves to just automotive. I want to see us in the mobility space. And of course, we want to really supply systems and we want to own the design and technology. So in some customers, in some cases, we own the designs that we license to our own customers because we are experts at what we do and they're experts at what they do. And I hope that we can continue doing this. I hope we continue to, invest heavily in R&D and continue to remain a technology-oriented business more than anything else.
We wish you all the best for that. But thank you so much for sharing some thoughts about the space as it stands and a few interesting thoughts on Sona as well. Lovely talking to you today, Sunjay.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. And viewers, thanks for tuning into this edition of The Talking Point.